Yeah, it says recording in the top corner.
Okay.
Okay,
I
yep,
can't,
it is. I see it now. Good.
okay, I can't see it.
All right, at this time, I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the West Mifflin Area School District on Thursday, June 25th, 2020. The West Mifflin Area School District regular board meeting on Thursday, June 25th, 2020 is being held virtually via Zoom. Meeting to begin at 7:05. Opening exercises, roll call.
Ahern,
Here.
Alexandrov,
Here.
Blazevich,
Here.
Englert,
Here.
Kostelnik,
Here.
Marshall,
Here.
Mattis,
Here.
White, and DeCenzo.
Here. Hearing of the citizens, public comment to be made by 12 p.m. on Thursday, June 25th, 2020 via email sent to publiccomment@wmasd.org. In order to provide comment through the district's website, the following must be met. Must include your name and home address in the email. Must be a West Mifflin, Whitaker, or Duquesne resident. Matter must have been discussed through the proper education channels. Direct email comments to the board president and or superintendent. Mr. Esper, would you like to read the public comment this evening?
Yes, I will. And I'm going to actually just go black screen while I read this. I'll just be reading them directly. Okay, the first comment is from Nicole Kern, 181 Frank Street, Whitaker. First, I would like to address the board involved in the building and permits meeting. The amount of proposed spending is astronomical and unnecessary. Please tell us why. We need a new concession stand for a year that, 1, could very well be canceled anyways. 2, doesn't even count due to the negligence of those involved with sports. Let's not get started on the fact that you didn't actually open the scoreboard up for bids from the community, but you didn't think to include a protective covering in the estimate you received. Now you propose taking funding away from our children, the very people you swore an oath to help and do your best for. This is not your best. Our children deserve better, so do better. Next, I would like to know what happens to the Title I funding now that the rest of the year was canceled. Does the funding stay with the district due to the extenuating circumstances, or has it been returned? Will the parent committee have full control over spending this coming school year, or will it only be a portion again? A few months ago, I spoke and asked for consideration in changing the bus stop for Frank and Whitaker. It is unsafe with stabbing, speeding vehicles, and drug addicts. Big buses come down the street all the time, but there are also alternative routes that can be taken if the S-Bend is still an issue. A huge amount of families need to know what the plan is for the upcoming year. We all need to make an informed decision on whether to continue to work with the schools or homeschool. Personally, I've looked into PA Cyber and their curriculum. Civics 5th grade, science has a legitimate class in history. Blows West Mifflin curriculum out of the water. What is the plan? When will we have concrete information? Finally, my concerns for mental health and suicide in our district are even more prominent in the current environment. What are your plans for children that need outside help? Will you make it mandatory for counselors, principals, and teachers to touch base with each and every child during the upcoming school year? Children stuck at home with no one to screen suicidal tendencies is a scary situation that can be prevented if done properly. Thank you. The next is from Diane Stanasic, 2803 Glenny Lane Extension. Page 1, number 5A, asking for a no vote to the appointment. Page 2, number 6.1, voting no to the budget as it is not a balanced budget and leaves a negative balance which can't be turned into the Department of Ed. Page 3, 7A, number 4, no vote, why are we refunding this bond? Page 3, 7A, number 7, what recourse do we have for the incorrect drawings that caused this problem? Finance, why are we changing banks from PNC to First National? Invoices, Please explain G1B. Finally doing something for the children by hiring the additional learning support teachers. Also remember, it's not the school police that is at the entrance of the buildings if an intruder would attempt to get in. It is the security guards, not the 600,000 school police department. The third comment is related to the gender expansive student non-discrimination policy. She asked that her name be kept because she is a senior at West Mifflin High School. She said, "Hello, I'm a senior at West Mifflin Area High School. I'd prefer to keep my name anonymous, and it's okay if that's okay. The policy is incredibly important, and it needs to be passed. As someone who has and is still exploring my gender identity, having this policy gives students like myself and many others less to worry about when it comes to gender exploration. There is so much fear when it comes to us for us. Judgment, harassment, fear of our own families not accepting us, knowing that we would at least be protected at school, a place where we spend so much time, would lift the weight off of our shoulders. I hope you think about this comment and how much it would help students of the school district. Thank you."
I just want to confirm that Joe and I were able to see the name. Well, Joe was able to see the name and confirm that she is in fact a student. So although we're not releasing her name, she does meet the requirements.
The next comment is from Amy Morrison, and she did not include her address, but so good evening. My name is Amy Morrison. I am the parent to 4 West Mifflin graduates, 3 current students in the district, and 1 who attends a charter school. My son attends a charter school due to the lack of programming available in our district. During the virtual learning period, my 4th grader was given a 30-minute live lesson in each of his classes. Some classes were on alternate days. In addition, teachers had office hours daily. If a student or parent had any concerns or needed extra help, they could join the Zoom office hour and have it addressed. If the student or group of students needed extra help, they added a class on Zoom. This was a lot more helpful than my other kids who were doing papers and having no interaction. In addition, specials were also live. There were crafts for art and exercises and game ideas for gym. Some teachers also had read-alongs on Zoom. The kids need interaction at every grade level. It can be done. Thank you, Amy Morrison. Next comment is from April Elliott, 3900 Vista View Drive. She started by saying, "I would appreciate if this was not paraphrased." 1, I am the mother of a son with autism and sensory processing disorder and another son with Tourette, ADHD, and OCD. I also have 3 other neurotypical children, so you could say that I'm an experienced parent. I have found an unfortunate disregard for special needs across the board. The majority of our special education teachers are amazing, but they are not always properly supported or utilized. It is frustrating to them and us as parents when we both wish their schedules and assignments were more in line with what the students need. Ideally, their input would hold more weight and their suggestions would be supported by their administrators. I have also found that the paraeducator support staff is at a bare minimum. These employees are more valuable than you may realize. They also know how to support struggling students. They shouldn't be treated as irrelevant. We have too many students being pushed through due to a lack of time, support, and adequate evaluations. Frustrated parents reach out for help only to be told by our school psychologist that their children does not need any extra support. Our IEP process and evaluations need to be thoroughly combed through. When we have children in the 4th grade unable to read and still not getting the support that they need, we have a major problem. With the numbers of special education students on the rise, I would like to encourage you to make these students more of a priority. I assure you that every teacher including regular ed, is properly trained, especially in regards to ADHD and other disabilities, as well as trauma reactions that are typically categorized as bad behaviors. Number two, now more than ever, students who are experiencing trauma, some deeper than others, with the stay-at-home order, we have children locked in abusive homes, some exposed to drug use, alcoholism, stress from having absent parents, poverty, and other trauma beyond the family's control. Little minds cannot fathom how to process such big events, and it blocks their ability to learn, causes them to act out, then shut down. Year after year, I have watched our district decline, yet I haven't seen any drastic changes to turn things around. I am proposing that each and every one of you thoroughly research becoming a trauma-informed district. I will attach a PDF with that information, and I will forward that to the board. I will forward that PDF to you guys. Our behavior referrals are shameful and the bullying is out of control. Some of them are stress behaviors, not misbehaviors, and need dealt with accordingly. Studies have shown that becoming a trauma-informed school, along with bringing in proper supports and teaching techniques such as mediation, have drastically improved academics and declined behavior referrals down to almost zero. I would also like to add that our 7th grade students coming in from Duquesne need additional support as well. We could wait a few months like we always do until the kids find a way to adapt, or we could take an aggressive approach by hiring a specialist to come in and help the students adjust and coach the staff on how to properly accept a new group of students into our school. We need to educate the whole child. Teaching for a test has not done us well. I'm asking that you educate yourselves if you haven't already, and take a vote on adapting and implementing a plan to become trauma-informed before the next school year. If done properly, we should see a dramatic turnaround in what we never thought possible. Number 3, while it seems clear to you that you have already made a choice, I would like to encourage you to do a vast search for a superintendent who has many years of experience, diversity, in leading a trauma-informed district. We cannot afford any more hiccups in our children's education. And number 4, lastly, I urge you to wait on gym upgrades and the concession stand. The only upgrading we need right now in regards to our kids' education. Be responsible and stand for education. I appreciate sports more than most, but now is not the time. We are all looking forward to seeing who represents us as parents on the board. The next comment is from Jill Jacob, 425 Lisa Drive. I've addressed the board in February 2019 regarding the transgender expansive non-discrimination policy. At that meeting, it was determined that the policy committee would review and revise the policy into a version that West Mifflin could adopt. Can you tell me the status of that policy? What has been done since February? What is left to do? Will there be a policy in place for the 2021 school year? Next comment is from Lauren Rowe, 1747 Timothy Drive. She also stated to read this message in its entirety. I'm writing to inquire about the progress of the West Mifflin transgender expansive student non-discrimination policy. This conversation started in February of 2019 when the administration approached GSA for student input on a trans policy that they had been working on. Several policies from other districts were provided to us for a review and comment. In order to create a district policy of our own, GSA has done their work and looking to see the fruits of their labor. It has been 18 months and there's still no transgender policy in place. Look around you. This movement is at our doorstep and all around us. There is no better time than now to adopt a transgender policy. West Mifflin has an opportunity to step up and be a leader during this time when students need to feel safe and included. Remember, board members, you can vote on our policy tonight. so that we have it in place for the 2021 school year, just as you proposed it as new business in February of 2020. Next comment is Todd Canavy, 120 8th Avenue. I'm writing regarding the proposed transgender non-discrimination policy. After several months of discussion and advocacy during the February board meeting, the board unanimously voted to empower the policy committee to draft a policy for the board to approve. The West Mifflin GSA and Stand Together organizations provided the board with a draft policies based on the ones that have been successfully implemented in other districts of the Commonwealth. We are aware that the policy committee has drafted a policy outlining protections for transgender and gender expansive students in the district. The policy is not on the agenda to be voted on and approved at today's meeting. Given this is the last meeting before the start of the next school year, this is the last opportunity for the board to approve a policy in time for it to be enacted next year. Given that the board members have all gone on record indicating their support for a policy, I urge the board to introduce the policy for a vote and approve it at today's meeting. Thank you. The next comment is from Andrea Jasinski, 3610 Cherry Street, West Mifflin. Does the board have any response to the numerous allegations of impropriety when it comes to the use of ABM Group LLC being the sole provider of all construction services to the district? There have been multiple allegations of padding invoices and kickbacks being received by long-time board members, as well as others involved with the board that are already paid by the district. The district has not taken bids on any of the work that we are being told needs to be completed, and when the public are just expected to trust that it's not a waste of taxpayer resources, when in reality, it most likely is. Why are we not utilizing staff that we have to complete projects at the most reasonable price we can without sacrificing quality? Lastly, I would like to address the fact that at the Building and Grounds Committee meeting, it definitely appeared that the solicitor had input on things that were not legal standpoints. Multiple comments on structural engineering and just information in general that I wouldn't expect from someone that is there as legal advisor for the district. Thank you for your time. Next comment is from Christine Tuponis. She's a school nurse. I fully support this proposed policy. This is in relation to the transgender non-discrimination policy. I fully support this proposed policy. I believe it's very important for our school climate to have such a policy in place because it can help stop discrimination before it happens. We need to protect every student to ensure every student feels safe and cared for in order for them to succeed academically. Students cannot perform to their highest level when the school environment creates barriers for them instead of removing them. The next comment is from Dina Stott of 1040 Kentucky Blue Drive. She writes, I am in support of the transgender policy and I'm questioning the status of when it will be adopted. Thank you. Next comment is from Melissa Clark. She lives at 2520 Sunset Drive. States, I'm a lifelong resident of West Mifflin and I'm writing this in support of the transgender expansive student non-discrimination policy. I believe this policy is necessary and very important for protecting our students, our kids of the district. As a resident, I urge the board to adopt this policy now so it can be implemented for the upcoming 2021 school year. Thank you. The next comment is from Melissa Kavanaugh, 121 Vale Drive, West Mifflin. To whom it may concern, at tonight's school board meeting, I was hopeful to hear the school district's plan to support families with elementary students and working parents if schools are not open full-time in the fall. While my daughter will not begin kindergarten until next year. The district's support for working parents will determine if we choose to have West Mifflin pay for a local charter school in the future. My daughter would not have a parent available during the day to assist her with online classes. Will there be evening classes available? Would she be marked absent? Are you working closely with daycares who can assist? I would need to secure daycare, which is an added expense when I've already paid into school taxes. Are there any plans for grants to assist these parents with increased childcare costs since the schools may be unable to accommodate the traditional schedule? Well, I understand we need to build plans that keep students and staff safe. The school district is yet to unveil plans to support children without a stay-at-home adult there to support their education. Well, my husband and I would love to be here, would love to be her unpaid substitute teacher. That is not currently something we are able to do so. Carly Fuga, related to the transgender expensive student non-discrimination policy. Doesn't have her address. This is a step in the right direction. This is a step in the right direction, is making every single student feel accepted and safe in their school environment. This shows that they are being supported by students and adults to be who they truly are. And I believe that it is a necessary part of West Mifflin School District. The next comment and last comment is from Lucina Thunder, 712 Kenny Street, West Mifflin. She states, I would like to know what the plan is for the upcoming school year. Although we know that the board has to get final say from the Department of Education, we would still like to be made aware of what plans you're thinking of in regards to online education in classroom settings. Surely there has been discussion on what's going to be done in the case of multiple situations that may occur. It would be great if you guys offered some transparency on any plans you're considering, because many of us are trying to figure out whether or not we are staying in the district or converting to cyber school. There is plenty to talk about spending money. There is plenty of talk about spending money on sports that may not even happen next year, but we're not hearing anything about education of our children, of the education of our children in the district, and this needs to be addressed. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Esper. Information items?
Thank you, Mr. President. Information items. A, per the guidelines of the Act 39 of 2018, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the West Mifflin Area School District did not perform lead in drinking water testing during the 2019-2020 school year. The district will resume doing testing on drinking outlets in the upcoming school year, and the results will be discussed and posted at the June 2021 meeting. Information item B, congratulations to Brianna Battles, Anna Curcio, Miranda Leketic, and Cornell Sims, who were selected as the middle school 8th grade students of the year. They were selected as students that went above and beyond during their years at the middle school, in the classroom, around the school, and in the community. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Election of acting superintendent and assistant superintendent.
Tony, the as acting assistant shouldn't be on there, but what was posted publicly, I did catch that, correct that.
Okay. I guess, Joe, do you want to read the or do we just need a motion in a second?
Yeah, we would just need a motion in a second in approval.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Mr. Mattis. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
No.
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Mr. President, that passed on an 8-1 vote.
7-1.
So I'm sorry, 7-1.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no problem. All right,
Mr.
general
President.
fund budget.
Mr. President, you mind if I just say something very quickly?
Yes, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Solomon.
I just want to say, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Hoover on his retirement. I want to wish him well. Also, I'd like to thank the school board for your support. I promise I'll do my very best for the West Mifflin students, family, and staff during this search process for a new full-time superintendent. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
General fund budget.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to respectfully request a motion second and approval on the following items. Items 6A, numbers 1 through 9 on page 2.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Blazevich,
Second.
second by Mrs. Postelnick. Any questions or comments?
I have a question, Joe. The 6A1, is this a deficit based on the revenue that we're going to be getting, that we're projecting for next year? I'm just, based on the information that I had, looked like it might be.
Well, in the budget itself, revenues equal expenditures. What we end up with as far as fund balance this year and at the end of next year will be yet to be determined. This is it's a working document all year long. I think we have big challenges ahead of us, and most likely are going to have to, cut expenses somewhere down the road.
I guess my comment is the tax increase doesn't cover, based on projections of the budget, that still does not cover everything.
It doesn't, no.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Joe, for number 4, is this a one-time payment to Bettis?
Now that's an annual, a pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes. So that agreement was actually entered into in 2002. So that assessed value that is used to calculate the taxes was set back then, and it was agreed upon with the district and Bettis. And so the dollar amount reflects the new tax rate. But we get that every year.
Thank you.
I have one more question, Joe. So 6A1, the tax increase of 0.88 mils, that was actually, the board was capped based on action that we voted on back in January, correct? Such that we can't raise taxes beyond this 0.88 mils, correct?
Yeah, in lieu of passing a preliminary budget, which is different than a proposed budget, we passed a resolution saying that we would not increase taxes above the Act 1 index. That dollar amount, a percentage may have been 3.6, but it equaled a 0.88 million increase. So we were capped at that level.
So we're potentially projecting a balanced deficit or cuts next year, because pre-pandemic, we agreed to not increase taxes beyond 0.88 mils. Had we not taken that action, we could have raised taxes beyond 0.88 mils today to cover that projected fund deficit, correct?
Well, the purpose of passing a preliminary budget is if you want to go above the Act 1 index. At the time, I don't know if there would have been 5 votes to increase it 10 basis points, let alone 0.88. I mean, I know nobody wants to increase taxes. There's no enjoyment in that. as a first-year business manager, I would prefer that this wasn't happening, but this is happening, and you know, to vote against it, you know, for us not to do it, it would be fiscally irresponsible, given the climate and the situation that we're in. And you know, I'm going to work day in and day out with Mr. Solomon, and we've talked about areas that we're looking to save money, and this is just, we're going to have to be on this every single day, and hopefully everybody cooperates with us in the district, and we're very careful of our spending. I mean, we are.
And this is an increase of about 1.7 million over the budget from this year, correct? Are you able to elaborate on what the increased expenses are?
The increased expenses, it's salaries and benefits and special ed costs.
Thank you.
You know, we are hiring 3 teachers. You know, honestly, we can't afford to hire 3 teachers, but we have to hire 3 teachers. So in order to offset, you know, what they're going to cost us, and these are 3 special ed teachers, we're going to have to find other places to cut. I mean, it's you know, it's been, unfortunately been, I mean, I've been very consistent in the message, and nothing's changed, and I don't think anything is going to change. I know I made a projection on the Kennywood taxes at the finance meeting, and then later on I read that Kennywood canceled Fright Nights and Fall Fantasy, and you know, you think I slept much that night? I didn't. So we're just going to have to work at it.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe, wasn't the increase in special ed, what was that amount total? Because that's more than just teachers, isn't it?
It was
Wasn't it like around
1.5.
1.5?
Yeah, it's yeah, somewhere around there.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Have a roll call, Joe, please.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
No.
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Are we voting 1 through 9 or 2 through 9?
A1 through 9. Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
So no to 1 and 2, yes to the rest.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
DeCenzo.
Yes.
All right, Mr. President. All items passed on a 7-1 vote, with the exception of 1 and 2, which passed on a 6-2 vote.
Thank you. Board Secretary, Business Managers Report.
All right, it's items, it's 7A, numbers 1 through 10 on page 3. And what I'll do is instead of reading every single one of these, I'll just, if we can get a motion in a second, and then if the board has questions related to any individual item.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Blazevich,
Second.
second by Mr. Marshall. Do I have any questions or comments?
I have a question. 7A1. What was the premium last year?
It was $296. Oh, no, I could pull it up and tell you exactly from the meeting. But we had some claims, we had some litigation claims, and you know, it went up, I think, just because of those. If you give me a second. Yeah, it was 293,947 last year.
Thank you.
Joe, I have,
Anybody? I'm sorry.
I have another question. I have two questions. One's a question because I'm new at this a little bit still. 5 and 6, what's a desk review?
Gary or Krisha, really? Yeah, a desk review, would be something that's, how can I explain? A full appraisal would these two properties are looking to have a reduction in taxes.
Joe, let me explain here. What happens, Matt, is usually when we go to a tax appeal, the owner of the property comes to the tax appeal with an appraisal. We often send that appraisal to our appraiser for a desk review. If they feel that that appraiser is good and fair, they charge us a much smaller rate just to review that appraisal for us to give us an opinion of value. And then we go in and negotiate off that. If after the desk review they think that it is not a good appraisal, then we usually come to you and ask for a more full-blown appraisal on that property, which is more expensive. So it's a step that we do to try to save us costs of constantly asking for a full-blown appraisal.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is on number 7. The $46,989 credit. Where did that come from? Based on the Buildings and Grounds meeting that I attended, that number never came up in conversation.
Actually, Matt, I don't want to interrupt, but they did mention that credit. I believe I was there also, and I do believe they did mention the fact that we have that credit that they were going to deduct from the bottom line.
Okay.
I could be. I mean,
I believe that was the credit was from a fence.
Yeah, it was fencing at the stadium that they were supposed to complete. They did not. They had another sub that did that. So they owed us that money.
Okay.
But in all reality, you're going to see that in one of the invoices. And when they owed us that money, it was actually against the project itself. We never paid for that. So it's a credit from phase 1, if you would. If we would have wrote the check, then it would have been a true deduction off of the cost. But at the end of the day, that modification is going to be the full dollar amount.
So it's not really a credit.
Well, it's a credit from phase 1, and there's a motion to transfer that money out of the phase 1 into the capital projects fund because that amount of money was still non-paid, but it was for non-work.
I see. So we're moving phase 1 money into phase 3 or whichever phase this is falling into to cover because it's left over.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask, was it a professional drawing that was provided to ABM that had the incorrect placement of the I-beam, or was it a hand drawing? What was the issue why that I-beam wasn't where they thought it should be?
I believe the plans were stamped. So again, they were approved at some point by either the architect or whoever put that in place. And unfortunately, the beam was just located in the wrong place on the plans.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, is 7A4, that only allows the bond people to look at the bonds and think they're viable to refinance, or what?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's authorizing them to complete a preliminary official statement, obtain a bond rating and bond insurance for us. They will come back in August with a formal bond presentation for approval, and that would include a target for minimum savings. There's no cost for us to take this action. And again, we'll know this is not extending the term of the bond. This is just getting us a better interest rate, and it probably, like, if we could do it today, the savings would be in the ballpark of $350,000 over the remaining course of the bond payment schedule.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes. Finance?
7B Finance, 1 through 9 on pages 3 and 4.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Blazevich,
Second.
second by Mr. Mattis. Any questions or comments?
I
Roll call? Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Can I ask number 5? The transferring of $1 million from the capital projects into the general fund. What is that to be used for?
So in my budget proposal in the presentation, that was covered a couple years ago when West Mifflin had a stronger fund balance. There was a decision made to move $1 million out of the general fund and put it into the capital projects fund for work over, I think, over like a 10-year period. So we had money set aside so Sandy could get projects done every single year. Since we borrowed the money we did and have been doing all the upgrades to our school district, we obviously don't need that. And I need it in the general fund to help us get through the next year. So that's just moving that out. That's in the budget. There's a separate line item, transfer of accounts or transfer of assets.
I remember that. So that's not money that we are required to spend on a capital project.
No, that's different than the monies that were borrowed through the bond issues where you have to do that. I mean, believe me, I wish I could take that balance that we have sitting in those accounts and bring it over.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any questions? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
7B9, no. Everything else, yes.
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes to all but 4.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Mr. President, everything passed on an 8-0 vote with the exception of 4 and 9, which passed on a 6-2.
7 to
No,
1.
I'm sorry, 7-1 vote.
Thank you. Purchasing and contracting?
Is item C, numbers 1 through 21 on pages 4 and 5.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Mattis,
Second.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments?
Steve, is this a combined, all the licenses and all that, is that combined? Because I can remember voting like once a month on this stuff. Can you elaborate on that?
I don't know if he's going to be able to unmute himself. Can he unmute himself?
Well, Deb, I can at least jump in here. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, there's a lot of items on here, and these are these are just things I think in the past that may have been done gradually, over periods of time. I know there was a special meeting last year in June where a lot of these were actually approved in 2 separate meetings. Most of these are technology related. Item number 2 is the precision HR. They did reduce their costs going, into next year by 3%. So they did give us a discount. Most of these, item 20 is the renew with family behavioral resources. And most of these are technology purchases that Steve and I sat down. There's a couple that we took off that he thinks we don't need. And if we need, we can add them in August.
And Deb, I talked to Steve about these too. These are just annual renewals similar to insurance,
Yes.
things like that. So for technology licenses and support.
We just used to vote like, it seemed like 3 a month, so it's good to see them all at one clump here.
Matt, maybe you can answer then. Are some of these, we pay a lot for the Microsoft suite. Some of these, I'm wondering if it's things that we could do within that instead of paying for something outright additional. For example, like the e-hall pass.
I think that's a great suggestion. We can certainly get creative, utilizing the platforms that we are going to buy no matter what. I think that taking an examination to each one of these line items for next year, and with a goal to eliminate this time next summer having to purchase some of this stuff, is a great idea, and something certainly we should work on. Because yeah, I don't know enough about the specific functionality of these systems to be able to speak intelligently about whether they're able to be replaced or not with Microsoft platform. But I think if we gave that to Steve as something to examine throughout next school year, with an eye towards this time next year to have it not be on this list, that's certainly something we can work towards.
I believe that part of during their 6-month trial run with Ford, that was part of the evaluation that they did, and analysis they did on the district's infrastructure with everything with the IT software. Is they looked at there were some areas where we had 2 programs that basically provided the same function, and I think they consolidated in areas where they could, but I'm sure we could find others where we could cut, some areas where we could cut back as well. So I'm sure Matt, with the IT committee, you guys will take a long look at that.
Yeah, but that's a very good, that's a really good suggestion. It is something we've talked about. There were just other, I guess, higher priority, issues that we needed to address more, more immediately, and that are larger and longer term. But when you get into sort of the business process stuff like that, there's probably areas where we can look to make improvements and work with Steve on that. Most of this is annual renewals that are must-haves. Like, this is so that we can maintain all of the devices across the entire organization. And without some of these, we might not be able to do that and troubleshoot.
Well, okay, so two more questions. For AdviseX, is that something that Ford could provide for us instead of us having to contract it out?
What that is that's the Citrix licenses. Citrix doesn't sell their software direct. You have to buy it through a reseller, and AdviseX is that reseller. I don't know if Ford provides Citrix licenses as a reseller, if they're a preferred reseller for Citrix or not. That's something we could ask.
Gina, I could tell you that Steve came in today, and because the word managed was used, they're not managing it. Best they're just managing by giving us the licenses. So there's no management. And unfortunately, if we're not on Zoom, I have alt today to fix stuff, but since we have to post the agenda, I that's something that got there, but no, they're not managing. Matt's right. These are just licenses, which I doubt that, Ford could provide unless they bought them and sold them.
Well, Citrix, you have to be a preferred vendor, a preferred reseller or integrator with Citrix, and not every company, not every IT company out there is. Just because it's just might not be something they do. I don't know if Ford is or isn't. We can certainly ask Steve about that.
And my other question is, Dr. Hoover, for the IP paging system, that's at the middle school. Is it needed at the high school, or is it altogether different?
There
Yeah.
is one at the high school.
Pardon me?
I said there is one at the high school.
There's one at the high school, but this one was put in prior to,
Prior to it.
and that's why it's a support contract, I believe, is what that's for.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
yes,
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Stalnick,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 17, minutes on page 6.
Of a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kostelnik,
Second.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions? Roll call?
Ahern, Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes,
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Item 70, reports numbers 1 through 5 on page 6.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kostelnik,
Second,
second by Mr. Mattis. Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
yes.
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Okay, moving along to item 7F, refunds subtracted from expenditures, number 1 on page 7.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Ahern,
Second.
second by Mrs. Kostelnik. Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes,
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Item 7G, invoices numbers 1 through 5 on pages 7 and 8.
Do I have a motion?
Motion,
Motion by Mr. Alexandrov,
Second.
second by Mr. Blazevich. Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
yes.
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes, except for 2 and 3.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Item G1 passed on an 8-0 vote. G2 and 3 passed on a 7-1 vote. And 4 and 5, which includes the P cards, they passed on an 8-0 vote. Item 7H, requisitions, other, numbers 1 through 3 on page 8.
Do I have a motion?
Motion,
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Mattis, second by Mrs. Costello. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
yes,
Alexandrov,
yes,
Blazevich,
Yes,
Englert,
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Mr. President, that so concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Esper. District operations?
Yes, Mr. President, under district operations, I'm asking for a motion, second, and approval for 3 items, A, B, and C. Just very briefly, I'm asking the board to approve the athletic department health and safety plan, which is helping our students come back in for conditioning during the summer and preparing for the fall sports and winter seasons next year. Letter B is I'm asking for a approval of our additional target support and improvement plan for the high school. They were targeted with some various issues surrounding our special needs population, including attendance and not meeting some of the benchmarks that are set forth in mathematics. And then in the same type plan for our middle school, which is letter C. They're being targeted for attendance for our African-American population. And again, some of the other test scores not meeting various benchmarks.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hoover. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Mattis,
second,
second by Mrs. Ahern. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. Dr. Hoover, do these get posted anywhere for people to look at, to review, like online?
Plan?
Yeah, the
Typically-
plans.
Yeah, typically the process is that they have to be board approved, then they get posted.
Okay, so
Yeah, they will be posted tomorrow.
we couldn't put them out prior to today. And they can be edited, right? Like we can make modifications based on input and feedback.
It's again a working document basically is what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hoover, what is the difference between phase 2 and phase 3 green for the athletic department plan?
Well, again, what it does is the difference is basically the number of students that are going to be permitted and allowed to practice in one area, and some of the other precautions that they're taking as far as taking temperatures and screening kids and doing those types of things. It's more obviously it's if you're in a yellow phase, it's more strict.
Yeah, these are both green. That's why I was concerned. 2 and 3 are both green. I just didn't know what was considered. What was the turning point? Was there any kind of like guidelines or procedures that were established by anybody?
Well, I don't necessarily know what you're referring to or looking at there right off the top of my head, but we can talk about it tomorrow or whatever, and I can go over everything with you. These plans are actually, they're kind of it's almost statewide, quite frankly, and then they're kind of customized down to your specific level, depending upon your district.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I just have concerns about making sure that people are properly trained on this from a coaching standpoint and a volunteer standpoint, to make sure that we're consistent in how we apply it to each of the teams or each of the groups of students, to making sure that across the board we're maintaining safety, whether it's in a baseball field, a football field, a gym, or a locker room, on a consistent basis. I'm just putting that out there. I mean, this is detailed and relatively comprehensive, and the execution of it needs to be, trained, and folks need to be trained and taught exactly what they're supposed to do, and that they do it every time, and that we actually enforce it with our administration.
Yeah, and again, Matt, the good thing about the athletics is we do have UPMC who provides us with an on-site athletic trainer, and also we typically have a couple interns that also work with everybody. So they kind of really oversee it, and they do a real nice job as far as making sure that the coaches understand the requirements and what precautions to take.
And this might not be related to this, but are we procuring PPE for return to school or return to athletics for people to use PPE. So, sanitizer.
Personal protective equipment. Like, are you asking if we're getting masks for
I'm
everyone?
asking if we're in the process of getting any of that.
Yeah, we just actually completed are you talking about for the district as a whole?
As a whole and for
Yeah,
athletics.
we just actually put in it was a $220,000 grant, which actually we put cleaning machines in, we put masks, we put several supplies that we're going to get for next year. So it's not all necessarily going into personal protective equipment. There's actually some teacher laptops that we're also purchasing with that money. But we just actually, in fact, Joe and I and Sandy Wells were working on that, and Chief Pritchard were working on it the last couple of days. And quite frankly, I think Joe's gonna take the signature page, get Chris's signature on it, and we're gonna turn it in probably tomorrow. So
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
yes,
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes to B and C, no to A.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Mr. President, 8A passed 8-0, 8B and C passed 7-1.
It's the other way around.
Up, see. 8A,
Is 7-1.
7, oh, okay, I'm sorry, 8A was 7-1, B and C were 8-0. Thank you, Mrs. Ahern.
You're welcome.
Superintendent's report?
there is no report for.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
We'll jump
What's
over.
it take us to professional personnel?
Yes, Mr. President, under professional personnel, I'm going to ask for a motion second and approval for 10A 1 through 3, which are leaves of absence, 10B 1, which is a resignation, 10D 1 through 4, which are hirings and transfers, and 10E 1, which is other.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Ahern,
Second.
second by Mr. Mattis. Any questions or comments?
Dr. Hoover, do we have somebody with the experience to replace the person who resigned under B?
No,
Is that-
no, we don't.
Okay.
We have to advertise that.
All right. Anybody, any other questions? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
yes,
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes. That takes us to athletic personnel.
Yes, Mr. President, under athletic personnel, I'm asking for a motion second and approval for 12B 1 through 3, which are resignations.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Mr. Mattis. Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
yes,
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes. Substitutes, none. Conferences,
Just one, Mr. President, asking for a motion second approval for 14A and just that one conference.
do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Ahern,
Second.
Second.
second by Mr. Blazevich. Questions? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
yes,
Blazevich,
Yes.
Englert,
Yes.
Kostelnik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and DeCenzo.
Yes.
Mr. President, that ends my report, and just a very short time, I'll be stepping away from the district. Just want to wish the best of luck to really Jeff Solomon and Joe Esper. They got a mountain to climb, not only in the summertime, but over the next few years. And, I've really appreciated all the support that the board has given me, all the teachers have given me. I've been very fortunate here to, stay 15 years, work through a lot of issues. I've always felt that if we've had a great team around us, no matter where I was, whether it was the high school or over here at central office, and we got a lot of good people in this district, and I've had the opportunity to make a lot of friends, meet a lot of good families, but most of all, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of really outstanding students, and that's been the best part of my career.
Thank you, Dr. Hoover. That leads into the board president's correspondence. And, I'll just take this opportunity to thank you for your 15 years of service here in the district. I had the opportunity to work next to you at the high school for a year. And now as a board member working with you, I have nothing but the most respect for the job you've done here in West Mifflin. And, we're definitely going to miss you, and just want to congratulate you on your retirement and hope you enjoy it with your family.
Thank you very much, Tony. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I also, and I believe the rest of the board was given or received a few letters from parents of various booster groups regarding the concessions, the discussion of the concession stands to be built in the high school gym lobby. There was probably about 18 or 20 parents who wrote in support of the board carrying that project out. So when the time comes, if it ever comes where we discuss that further, maybe I'll read those letters out loud. But to save time, I just wanted to acknowledge those people who signed that letter, that I did receive them and the board received them. So we appreciate your input. And lastly, just wanted to thank the West Mifflin Community Foundation. They generously donated 40 thermometers to our athletic department, which will allow every head coach at our middle school and high school level to have their own thermometer for their team, specific for their team, instead of us having to share them. So that is part of the requirement for the plan that was just previously passed, is that the kids' temperatures must be taken on a regular basis for them to be able to participate. So that was very generous of the Community Foundation to step up and donate those. I believe it was at a cost of a little under $3,000. So very significant donation on their part, and much appreciated. And that concludes my board president correspondence. Executive session discussion, we discussed personnel and litigation. Board reports.
Building and grounds, we had a meeting this month. ABM made a presentation with the beam up in the roof with the chiller, with the change order. It was discussed and it was approved tonight. Still Center, the meeting this month, the budget was approved for the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Mr. Alexandrov. Anybody else have anything?
The Finance Committee meeting earlier this week. And we just discussed the budget and the drivers of revenue and expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
The Technology Committee, well, we didn't meet, but I have an update. That's okay from. So the order for additional laptops has been placed for the elementary school students. Forecast of delivery is TBD due to supply and demand. I think a lot of schools are in the process of purchasing equipment, and or everybody with the remote work situation, a remote teleeducation situation. So they're projecting in September. Hopefully they come before that. The Terra Switch contract that we agreed upon a couple of months ago is being worked on. So servers and connection to those servers in our cloud environment, or our hosted environment, has been provisioned. So we can begin moving over basically our our operating systems and applications that sit at the high school, we can begin moving those off of the high school campus and out of the high school into the hosted environment here in the upcoming weeks, helping to alleviate some stress on those machines and those machine rooms. All of the current student laptops have been collected and are being reworked for redistribution in the fall. We're working to improve the on-call student information systems to better deal with COVID-19 responses for the upcoming school year, to enable text messaging and ensure all contact details are up to date from the student information system. And then Steve mentions that they're currently working on additional grant funding to replace staff laptops for teachers to better assist students given the potential for remote work and instruction using Schoology. So those are the notes that Steve kind of forwarded me. I wanted to make sure I read them off.
Is anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Blazevich.
Yeah, I have for policy. I know we have some teachers, students, and parents asking about our progress on the new transgender policy. We tried having a meeting yesterday due to some scheduling difficulties. We were not able to do that. We have a rough draft that Dr. Hoover made for us. I talked with Krisha. There's a few things we want to go through just to iron out and make sure that everything is set in stone. Plus, GSA responded back with us, and they have some things that they questioned and would like to make sure that are in the policy. So we want to make sure that we have everything in there and it's ready to go and ready for the next school year. I spoke with our committee members. We're going to have a meeting next week, a Zoom meeting next week. Early next week, we'll figure out a time and a date, and we'll get that information out. And then hopefully next month, we're able to have an in-person meeting with the GSA group so we can talk about everything. And the policy will be ready to go for next meeting, and we'll be ready and will be implemented for the next school year. Just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Hoover. Huge help with me during this since this is my first time on the board still. First 6 months, he's helped me a lot with this policy. He did a great job coming up with a rough draft. Being a student under him and now school director working alongside of him was a pretty cool and neat thing, but just wanted to thank him for his years of service and try not to enjoy retirement too much.
Thanks, Johnny.
Hey, for the personnel committee, I just want to give an update on our superintendent search process at a very high level. Initially, I believe Dr. DiArcangelo, who's a consultant who's handling the search with us, met with, I guess, a group of PTA moms to get their feedback on what they'd like to see in the superintendent. And then he's also met with and coordinated interviews. We received, I believe, 12 candidates applied. Dr. D is working the list down a little bit for those who have more of the bullet points that the board's looking for, and has conducted interviews with our administrators and the potential candidate superintendents, as well as I believe the teachers union and the SEIU were involved as well. They don't get a vote in this, but Dr. DiArcangelo is going to give us a synopsis of their thoughts that he independently corrected. And then we're going to start the board in-person interviews in early July. And we'll go on from there. One of the reasons I thought about it is if there's a case that we have to call a meeting to hire a permanent superintendent, that maybe prior to the school year, that maybe we can add the new policies that you've been working on or procedures, Jonathan.
Where are we going to meet with Dr. DiArcangelo on July 1st? Is it going to be up the middle school or the high school?
The middle school.
Okay, what time?
That I don't know.
I believe the first interview is at 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
He wants to meet.
they will be scheduled 5, 6, and 7 at the middle school in the auditorium. We went and scouted the venue out. We will use proper social distancing while we are there. and it should work pretty good.
Something there said he wanted to meet with all of us at 4:30.
Yeah, we'll clarify all that, and we'll get it out to the board in proper time, so everyone has enough time to adjust their schedules or calendars. We'll figure it all out well before the July 1st date.
I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
Dr. Hoover, since it is our last meeting, is there any way you can give an update? I know you don't know a whole lot, just for everybody, all the parents that are wondering where we stand going back, anything that you know, even regarding Title I or anything that Leah's doing that can kind of give some peace of mind for parents that are at a standstill not knowing what's going on for next year.
Yeah, it's been a real roller coaster as far as what's going to take place for next year. The pendulum has swung back and forth on this thing where, quite frankly, I think myself, along with a number of superintendents, thought it was going to be all online. And now with things that have changed, quite honestly, it looks like, it's going to be some online. Some kids may want to stay in a remote learning, but for the vast majority of the kids, it looks like we're going to try to get them back into school. And, it's been amazing just watching how this thing has changed almost on a daily basis. And quite honestly, it changes depending upon where you are within the state of Pennsylvania. Out east, they have entirely different restrictions and expectations for reopening schools compared to us. Up in Erie County, they're different. What we're planning for. I mean, it's just, there's no consistency anywhere. So that's going to be the biggest battle, is that no matter what we choose or Jeff and Joe choose to do, they're going to be compared with every other district and how they're doing it. And, they're better here. We're not doing it here. So it's just a game that at some point, I think probably within the month of July, most of it is finalized. I know that Jeff has been working and getting some parent input and so forth. And that's a big piece that we want to make sure, we have some involvement from them as well, just to make sure. So from Title I, if you were asking about Title I funding, it stays with us. Again, we had to pay our teachers. The vast majority of Title I goes to salaries, to offset salaries. So, for most of that, it's been spent. I think the final expenditure report's already been put in place. So it'd be nice to have that money back, but that's not the case. The new applications is already out. So, we'll see where we're going to dedicate that money.
Thank you.
Ms. Singler, one other thing to add. I'm going to meet next week with some local superintendents to share some information and get a little bit more feedback to where we can maybe go on this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
For safety and security, I hope all the board members got in their packets today. Mr. Pritchard drew up a 2019-2020 security and safety report. Take a look at it. It's kind of too long to go into right now, but it's a good report.
Thank you for bringing that up, Debbie, because that's a requirement of Act 44. So I'm glad you noticed that and then brought it to everybody's attention.
We have to vote on it?
Pardon me?
We have to vote on it? Or
No, you don't have to vote on that. It just has to be reported to the school board at some point at the end of the year as a summary.
Is this something that the public should see or does see? Like, do we put this on the website?
No, because of what it deals with.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else for committees? Solicitors report?
Tricia, you're muted.
All right.
No report.
No report.
Yeah, her report was given in an executive session.
Old business?
I'm just
I want to say congratulations to Dr. Hoover. I know him for about 10 or 12 years. And it's been a pleasure working for you, and good luck on your retirement, Mark.
Thanks, Nick.
Hey, just real quick, I'm curious where the heck this thing about $100,000 concession stand came from. I was never aware of it, and that's very expensive. I know we maybe have mentioned it at a high level, but I don't think I mean, it's not anything for us to vote on. And now that's something, now we have parents thinking we need it and parents that think we don't. And I mean, where are we going to go with it? Is it just something we'll have to discuss down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where the dollar figure came because quite frankly, we haven't received pricing for that project and or any of the other ones, really detailed pricing at least. So I'm not sure, Dave. I mean, one thing that we could explore even possibly is reaching out, like I believe in one of the public comments, you know, maybe utilizing what resources we have available in district or even in the community. I mean, you know, maybe there's a local contractor here. I can't imagine that it's a very large expense to construct something that would be suitable for the need that they're looking for. So, I mean, we could explore all options. I know you know, some people think it's unnecessary and that's their opinion. That's fine. But there's probably 6, 8, or maybe even 10 teams or organizations in our school that would utilize that and find a need and a necessity for it. So, you know, we're obviously going to continue that discussion in the future. So we'll see where it goes. But by all means, if there's other ways or resources we could pull from to accomplish that, rather than, you know, burning the taxpayers and or, you know, using that that construction fund, then I think we should explore all those options.
Definitely. Thank you.
Did you want to, Christian, it looks like you're back on. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can go
sorry
back.
guys, when I went to unmute myself for some reason, I got kicked off. No, my reports were given in an executive session, and I just again want to thank the team for all the hard work they did with the SEIU contract. Dr. Hoover, Ms. Wells, Mr. Esper, Mr. Solomon, and then Debbie, Mrs. Ahern, and Mr. DeCenzo were on that committee. So thank you.
Anybody else have anything for old business?
Hey, Tony, I just have to give Tricia a shout out because she put a lot of work in yesterday and today of getting what was agreed upon in a red line version, you know, so we could see it.
All right. Any new business?
Under new business, real quick, Mr. Solomon, since you're going to be going forward, I know that board members were aware of his the Titan Academy plan that he has. How is that something that you're going to start working with the administrators on next month? And then maybe we give a presentation of all what that is, because I know some people are very excited about what the Titan Academy is going to be down the road.
Sure, that's no problem at all. I know that I had some preliminary talks with Mr. Lick to make sure that it fit into the master schedule without any types of problems. And so, you know, next month that'll be no problem at all.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
Any other new business?
Yes, I think we have to thank everybody that was involved with the lunch distribution and all the COVID stuff that's gone on in the last 3 months. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kostonik, second by Mr. Mattis. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.